There's a very important line to understand about, or understand in relationship to authenticity, to integrity in all human relationships. And the line emerges as we understand that everyone has needs. The need to survive, to feel secure in that survival, to develop and experience love and belonging, to develop and earn self-esteem, to develop our talents, our abilities, to bring those abilities out into the world, creating abundance for ourselves and others, and finally to be a part of something more. And initially, as we enter into the world, we are in a completely dependent relationship with our parents, with our caregivers, with the giants. As we mature, as our bodies mature, there comes the possibility of becoming more and more independent. And since our needs do not go away, they are needs as much as oxygen or water, the independence comes from having multiple opportunities to meet our own needs. So if I can experience love and belonging alone, I have independence. If I can survive alone, if I can be secure in my survival alone, I have the opportunity to transcend the necessary and dependent relationship with parents, teachers, etc. And I can also remain dependent if I do not develop, if I do not choose to make money, if I do not learn skills, if I get in an accident and cannot move around, right? There is the opportunity to become independent, but that opportunity can be taken, can be seized, or can be bypassed for a variety of reasons. Now, this line between independence and dependence is a very important line. Everything above this line is authentic. Everything below that line has a probability of being prostitution of some form or another. Now, prostitution simply means that we're doing something because we want something else, you know. We're saying yes because we are attached to the opportunity to meet our needs through the other. And so we're not saying yes from a place of authenticity, of integrity, with what is right for us overall. We're saying yes because if I say yes and if I please you, then you will help me get this other thing, and that will help me get my needs met, right? And so that's what the line is. So I thought it'd be useful to look at a variety of contexts that are above and below the line. Now, it's worth mentioning that if you are in a dependent relationship with an individual who is above the line, meaning they don't need you to meet their needs, there's a much higher probability that they will respect and support your authentic self. In other words, an infant with two mature adults who each independently meet their own needs for survival, for security, for love and belonging, for self-esteem, for development of their gifts, to bringing abundance into the world with those gifts, to becoming part of something greater than themselves. If a child is cared for by two such adults, the adults are less likely to demand that the child deviate from their authentic self in order to satisfy the needs of the parents. I say less likely because there can still be convention, cult dogma. I don't want to go to school. Well, you're going to go to school. Well, I don't want to go to school. Well, everyone goes to school and you're going to school, right? Without any analysis of what it is about the school. Is it the incompetence of the teacher? Is it the noise in the classroom? Is it the bullying in the playground? Is it, what is it? Is it the racism? What is it that leaves you not wanting to leave to school? Or is it an insecure attachment with one or both parents? Or is it a desire to study something else, right? So there can still be a dogma around conventions in the cult that says, yes, you are going to do this, whether or not that feels authentic, whether or not it's what you would choose if you had the power. But if the grown-ups, if the giants are not adults, meaning they have not reached a state of independence, they may need the child to make them look good so that they can advance in their career because they're insecure financially. They want the child, they need the child to behave a certain way to help them get their needs met. Well, in this situation, the rules of prostitution are far more rigorous. You will do this or you will be beaten behind closed doors. You will not make this mistake or that mistake, or I will humiliate you. I will, and I don't care what your authentic response is. I require you, because you're attached to me, to make me look good, to do this, to do that, not to do these other things. So below the line, a child that cannot meet their own needs. Above the line, an adult that can leave home at any time comfortably. A spouse who doesn't have any money or access to money on their own, doesn't have life skills. An independent adult that has confidence in their ability to take care of themselves, make the money they need to make, create love and belonging outside of the social framework of the other spouse. Growing and skills can be learned outside or inside, right? There's choice for there to be independence. A tenant that has nowhere else to go that is safe in an abusive, perhaps, or a dependent relationship with the landlord. I don't have enough money to move. There's nowhere else I can afford within this range. I don't have the time and energy to move. So a dependent relationship with a landlord versus above the line, a tenant who has, $20,000, $30,000 saved, anything needed to move, bridge the cash flow gap, has the time to look around, the ability mentally, emotionally, and physically to organize the move. A lover who hates themselves, who hurts themselves, who despises themselves, but who feels happy, who feels valuable when they are with a certain partner, a certain friend, who needs that friend desperately for the popularity, for the money, for the self-message that if this person likes me, I may be okay. It's below the line, needs to do things, needs to think, what would that friend, what would that lover want to see here? What do I have to say so they won't reject me? Above the line, I like myself. I can take good care of myself. I have other choices to gain rank, etc. in the cult. Below the line, a banking or a financing round in a company, a bank that may foreclose on a house, and you can't survive the move, right? You can't deal with being evicted at this time. You can't be foreclosed upon. Versus a bank with good credit, and you have multiple options out there to explore, and you can do this, you can do that, etc., etc. You're in a place that you don't know, below the line, you're out in the forest, you're lost. You do not have confidence in your survival. You're scared, you're terrified, you're lost, you're out in the forest, you're out in the wilderness, and someone you don't feel comfortable with, someone you don't know, presents themselves, offers maybe a slightly unpalatable or a very unpalatable version of help, right? Shut up and follow me, or go get lost, right? Below the line, you're in a fear-dependent scenario. Above the line, you have confidence in your sense of direction. You have confidence in your ability to survive in the woods for multiple days in a row. You have confidence in your ability to negotiate difficult situations. You meet someone, you don't feel particularly comfortable or enjoy the interaction, and you can go out on your own, right? You are not in a dependent relationship. You can just say hi and no thank you. You're terrified of dying. You have a doctor that seems to be the only doctor willing to operate, or the best doctor in the land, or the only one that your benefactor will pay for, right? I'm not going to pay for another doctor. If I'm going to pay any money, it's going to be for this doctor. If you don't reject, if you don't like this doctor, that's it. You're going to die, right? So it's in a dependent scenario, right? Doctor is not willing to tolerate a difference of opinion, a space for a second opinion. The person paying for it isn't willing to tolerate this, isn't willing to tolerate that. Above the line, multiple doctors, wide range of options, and you're not afraid of death, right? It's like, well, I'm not going to live in agony for the next 3 years with a 50% chance of survival. I'm going to live my life to the fullest until the end. And that may be in months, it may be in weeks, it may be in years, and I'm fine with that, right? I don't need to prostitute myself. I don't need to do things I don't want to do because I'm not afraid of the options before me. Below the line, you're in a dark alley, 5 malicious people around you. You don't have a cell phone. There doesn't seem to be a way out. They want something from you, maybe sex, maybe money. You don't have the power. Above the line, 5 people you don't like, a crowded place, access to help, you know karate. You're comfortable doing what you authentically want to do in that situation. Below the line, you're an addict. You need your fix, you need your drug. And you have to do certain things to get it. Above the line, you're not an addict. Or you've got plenty of money to buy the addiction in multiple places. You've got people who will sell you the substance or the behavior anywhere around the world, and you've got a large amount of money, and you have the same interaction with the same person. You're above the line. You've got options, you've got power. And a lot of what we're looking at is power. Power is the line. Do you have power to meet your own needs independently and still be authentic is the question. If you do not have that power, there will be a voice in the back of your head that is manipulating or strategizing on how to get what you want in a given environment. And that manipulative strategic voice is below the line. It's inauthentic. You're not thinking, what would bring me the most joy? You're not thinking, what would be the greatest expression of my values? What would the very best me do in this situation if nothing was on the line? Would I spend time with this person if I didn't need their money? Would I listen and pamper this person's endless complaints if I didn't need any money from them? Would I put up with this bullshit from the landlord if I had other options, right? That's the line. I'm traumatized. I feel helpless. I'm terrified of change. And there's a change that could happen. I've integrated my trauma, and I'm ready for change. I'm able and willing to think. I'm above the line. Now, depending on the degree, it's not a black and white line, right? There is a line, there is a crossing point into authenticity. But as we head down this way, as we head down below the line, it's a line of power. And so as we become more and more helpless, more and more powerless, we become simultaneously more and more needy. So more powerless, more needy. As we become more and more needy, in a sociopathic environment, which in many ways our cult is, there would not be a single homeless person in the United States, for example, if the response to somebody needing a home was to support them in having a home, right? But the response is often the opposite. You need a home so you can't shop here. You need a home, so get off the streets. You need a home so you can't sleep in the park bench. You need a place to sleep, so we're going to wake you up and tell you to move, right? In a sociopathic environment, as your powerlessness increases, so does your neediness. And as your neediness and powerlessness increase, your willingness to do whatever it takes to reduce your fear of pain. You become manipulated by your fear of pain. If you're not afraid of pain, then you're authentic the entire time, right? Someone says, give me your wallet or we will kill you. And if you're not afraid of death and you're not afraid of pain, you can just say, no, I'm not giving you my wallet. I don't feel like it. And then when they kill you and and take your wallet, you've died authentically, right? You were not afraid of pain. So usually the fear of pain correlates with the amount of pain that a person has felt, right? The more trauma and the more pain a person has felt, the less they want to feel that trauma and that pain reenacted. The less they want to feel that, the more attached they are to not feeling it, the more frightened they become of feeling it in contexts that will likely bring it up again, right? Like, if you felt humiliated, confused, alone, lonely, helpless, and self-loathing for a year after being raped in the last alley with 5 people, what you see when you see 5 people coming towards you in the alley is you see a year of pain, a year of feeling absolutely terrible. And your fear is of that volume of pain, that intensity of pain for that duration. Now, most people could handle a large amount of pain for half of a second, even a second. It's going to be absolutely horrible, but it's going to be over in a second and you're never going to feel that pain again. Most people can take very high levels of pain if they know it, okay, it's going to come, it's going to go, half a second, right? And it's kind of gone before, absolutely excruciating. But these pains that where one thing leads to another and it gets worse and worse and worse and it goes on for a year. And then finally you can go out and walk again and feel relatively comfortable and you're not paranoid anymore. But then back to square one again, back to the start of that year. That can be, I don't want to feel this. I don't want to feel this. I'm terrified of pain that's in the past happening again in the future. And usually people who have not experienced trauma and pain are not afraid of trauma and the pain. People who have had past experience are afraid of it happening again. So the fear is higher. So as the powerlessness goes up, the neediness goes up, and the fear of pain goes up. And with the fear of pain going up, the willingness to do anything to avoid the pain also goes up. And with the willingness to do anything to avoid the pain, the probability of doing other things that are painful for yourself and others also go up. For example, someone who feels absolutely desperate and alone and wonders if their partner is cheating on them maybe doesn't want to go through that for another month while their partner's off on a trip. And so in that fear of how horrifying that is and the not answered calls and this and that, Maybe I'm going to become an addict. Maybe I'm going to, maybe I'm going to have my own affair. Maybe I'm going to cut myself. And then some of those habits, maybe the addiction, maybe the affair, maybe the scars or the cutting, right, then cause new pains, right? And so then there can be a tailwind where the techniques that are done to manage one form of pain create more pain, which then lead to more pain, which then need management, right? And that can be a terrifying tailspin when it feels instinctive, reactive, and out of control. If there's an above, but what drives it into that situation is dependency, right? I can't take care of a kid myself. Even if they're having an affair and it's devastating, I can't pay my own bills and take care of a kid myself and do this and do that. And so I'm stuck, I'm helpless, right? Whereas above the line, hey, honey, I'm feeling 9 out of 10 agony in this situation, number one. It's too much agony. Number 3, right? I need you to do this and this, or I need to leave the relationship because, like it or not, this brings up a lot for me. And, if you want to be able to disappear for a month anytime and want to do that, it's not personal. I'm not trying to capture you, but I don't want to go through hell for 30 timeless days on a regular basis so that you don't have to call back and do this and do that would easily reassure me. So either this matters to you and we get a flow and an agreement around communication and bonding while you're away, or you stop going on trips, or I come with you, or we end the relationship, right? Because I don't want to go through all this because you're too sociopathic and self-centered to do anything or allow anything within the context of the relationship that would bring this 9 out of 10 pain down to a 2 or 3 or into pleasurable terrain, right? I don't want to be married or attached to a sociopath. And a sociopath is the only one that is willing to hear that their significant other is in 9 out of 10 pain and do absolutely nothing about it when there are things that could be done. So, I'd rather be on my own than with a sociopath. So now we're above the line, right? So that's independence, right? I can enjoy my own company as long as I don't feel like I'm being lied to and cheated to or, treated insignificantly. I can enjoy my own company. And there are other people who don't want to go off for a month trip when I enjoy bonded connection. They enjoy bonded connection too. And so we go together or that kind of thing. And so that's all above the line. But if you are with someone who is sociopathic in that particular area or in general, but you cannot pay your own rent, care for your own child, etc., you will descend into rage, into helplessness, into powerlessness, into terror, and into trying to manipulate, maybe through guilt, maybe through, variety of things, of your own, because one of the things that you have to do with a sociopath, see, with an empath, all you do is you say, honey, my pain is 1, 2, 3, 4. Now my pain's a 5. And long before it's a 5, they're working with you to say, well, what can we do? It's not your problem. That's a sociopath. Because a sociopath dissociates from the other. That's why they're a sociopath. They're not evil. They're dissociated from the relationship. They don't care because they're dissociated from the relationship, right? A sociopath is first and foremost dissociated from their own empathic brain, which means that they have little or no empathy for themselves, and so they have little or no empathy for others as well. They first dissociate from their own empathic brain and are operating from the reptilian and mental brain. And then they're dissociating from you as a byproduct of that. And so you have pain, that's your problem, it's not my problem. I don't have pain because I've already dissociated from you. An empath, by the time we're up to 4 or 5, says, oh, what can we do? What can we do? We are connected in a relay of energy. And so we can respond to our challenge in our relationship, right? That's an empath's response. But if you're in a dependent relationship with a sociopath, someone in a sociopathic state, what you have to do is try and cause pain to the sociopath that will be relieved if they do what you need them to do. So, give an example, right? A therapist sexually abused me under the influence of psychedelics. My first psychedelic therapy session turned into a sexual abuse session. And I didn't anticipate it. I didn't know enough to know that that could happen, right? So I was ignorant, etc. And, you know, an empathic therapist informs their customers, makes sure that it's a good decision for the customer. But I was dealing with a rather narcissistic, and once the narcissist became scared, a sociopathic therapist. So what I needed, transparency, apology, this and that, was not what the sociopath needed. They wanted to get away from the situation. And I needed closure and, and various things like that. So in order to get a sociopath to do something that's good for you, when they don't care what's good for you versus themselves, you have to induce pain or fear of pain for them, right? And so in my case, since I had a 10-hour recording of the sexual abuse, I sent that out and said that I would send it into wider and wider circles if the sociopath didn't give me what I needed in a dependent state, right? So the psychedelics regressed me. So I was in a more dependent, childlike state, number one. Number two, I was already dealing with trauma, which put me in a place of high pain. That's why I was doing the therapy. Thirdly, love and belonging was in a very weak point for a variety of reasons. My ignorance, the incompetence of our culture in general in those areas, partner had just left, etc. So I was in a very needy state with a lot of pain, and an incompetent and sociopathic therapist didn't care about that. What they cared about was their reputation and not going to jail, right? So it's not an empathic modality that is used to get your needs met with a sociopath who's narcissistic. It's in essence blackmail, right? If you were empathic, you wouldn't have sexually abused your patient. It doesn't usually work out very well for either party, but it never works out for the patient, right? There are not case studies out there amongst the 12% of therapists who sexually abuse their patients in one form or another. There aren't case studies out there showing how patients, when sexually abused by their therapist, have breakthroughs and lead, wonderful lives. So, in fact, there are many case studies of the lives of therapeutic patients collapsing due to the malpractice and self-centeredness of sociopathic therapists. And to have to pay someone for the abuse that collapses your life is particularly cruel, right? It's particularly sociopathic. And so an empath doesn't do that. An empath cares enough about their patients to actually want what's best for their patient, right? Makes sense, right? You care enough about your patient that you actually do a good job. And a good job in a therapeutic context is to behave in a way that your client has the best odds of going forward, right? That's what you do if you're empathic and halfway intelligent, is you behave in a way that sets your client up to win the majority of the time, as best you can. You don't set them up to lose by putting them in a probability field where you have, a 99% chance of causing major harm, right? An empathic doctor, to change, use another analogy, doesn't give arsenic to their patients after reading a study that 99% of their patients die after drinking arsenic. Well, let's see, maybe you'll be the exception, right? No, that's not what a good doctor does. And so you have to manipulate from that place, which then is an entangled relationship, right? And so I manipulated Peter Sandhill and the Human Awareness Institute that recommended him until I got enough sanity and closure and stuff about the situation to where, obviously, even in a dependent, regressed state, someone who would sexually abuse you in a therapy session isn't very healthy. But you see, terrified children hang on to people they know. Abused children run back to the abuser because it's familiar, because it's family. And they're frightened of the unknown more than they're frightened of the pain, right? And so there's a tricky situation how to get out of there. But I didn't get above the line until I had used some pretty strong manipulation, right? And, when you have a 10-hour recording of all the abuse and the person doesn't want to go to jail, even an incompetent narcissistic sociopath may start doing the right things out of fear. But that in of itself was a pretty lonely place to be, to realize that, the people I was paying to have my best interest at heart and and, were just doing what they needed to do to avoid, being bankrupted in court, etc. Just as it's a pretty sociopathic place to realize that your attorney is only there for the money, doesn't really care what it feels like, or hasn't bothered to learn good sexual abuse interviewing protocols to not re-trigger the event and stuff like that. And so it's, in a sociopathic environment, you're dealing with reptilian brains in dissociated people who don't have access to their humanity in that territory. That's, you're below the line, they're below the line. They're not wanting to apologize and do this and this. They want to leave you and run away without any consequences. Right? So they're below the line too. They're doing things they resent having to do because the alternative is much worse, going to jail or being on a newspaper and that kind of thing. It's not fun to be below the line for you or the other person. And so the line is also marked by a continuum of competence, meaning if you are highly competent, you're not below the line, you're highly powerful. That's where you want to be. And so if you are dealing with somebody who is below the line, how do you know, right? Well, in our cult, you don't. But if you understand a little bit about psychology, you might notice how old they are emotionally. If someone is 5 years old, they're almost always terrified. And there's a lot of emotional 5-year-olds walking around. There's a lot of emotional 6-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 2-year-olds, 8-year-olds, right? We are filled with dissociated trauma survivors that have young emotional ages. You see, and to a 5-year-old, the world is this giant and uncontrollable place. If I'm 5 years old, I look at having to pay my bills and it's like, oh, there's a lot of paper there, a lot of stuff. What if I don't have enough? I don't want to look at that, right? Let's go play, right? Everything seems like this big, scary thing to a traumatized 5-year-old. And if you weren't traumatized, then you mature. So you're not 5 years old, right? So emotional regression is the first thing to look at. Trauma illiteracy. We're a highly traumatic cult. So if you're traumatically illiterate, it means you haven't dealt with your trauma. But it doesn't mean you don't have any. It just means you're not aware of the paradigm and what to do about it. The more traumatized you are, the more frightened of re-traumatization you are. The more frightened you are, the more you're willing to act to avoid your fear rather than to do and be the person you want to be, right? So you're below the line. The less money you have in a cult that values money more than people. If you valued people more than money, the homeless would all be well taken care of because they are people and you could value them. But if you value money more than people, and the homeless don't have any money, then why would you value them? They're just people, right? And so, in a cult that values money more than people, if you don't have any money, you have no value in the cult. You are a liability. Because people don't like admitting that they value money more than people. They resent being aware of their sociopathic dimension, right? Their sociopathic side. And yet if you are a perfect human being, except you don't have any money for whatever reason, and you are treated poorly and shamed and not supported precisely because you don't have money, then people have to look at their cruelty to say, I am a reptile trying to survive, and you are not expedient, and so I'm not going to help you. The homeless get that message 10,000 times a day. As 10,000 people in Lexus and BMW drive by, knowing these people need support, and not supporting, right? You don't have use for me. So, that's... So the less money you have, the more you're in that dependent state, the more powerless you are. The less skills you have, the less confidence you have. Confidence comes from experience. If you've made successful outcomes out of various traumas 10, 20 times, when you're hit with a trauma, you're not two-phased, I'll figure this out. But if you've been knocked under 2 times, right? You went into the ocean and you nearly drowned 2 times. Well, then those waves are not just friendly little things to play in. That next wave could kill you. And that's your relationship to the wave. So you're now acting out of fear, survival fear, as you approach the wave. You're not above the line. You're, what do I have to do to get out of the ocean, right? So if you're below the line, you hide the opinions that the people you depend on don't like. You hide the political leanings that aren't popular in the cult you depend on. You say yes to sex that you don't want or no to sex that you do want. I really like that person, but my parents will punish me. My relatives will cut me out of their will. and I'm not strong enough independently to make my own millions. So I don't want to be cut out of the will. I need that will. So I will not have sex with the person I'm interested in, and I will have sex with the person Mom and Dad approve of, Uncle Harry approves of, right? You're going to marry a Christian. You're going to marry a this, right? Or I'm going to take the rug out and you're in a dependent relationship. You're going to be out on the street. You don't want to have sex? It's fine. You're just going to have to get a job and be out in the street. But I don't know how to get a job in this economy. Well, then you better have sex. Better please me. Do what I want. Don't annoy me. Right? So now it's not a relationship of love, it's a relationship of fear. What do I have to do so that this doesn't happen? Right? You're below the line. And a lot of us are below the line in areas of our life. I can't stand this client. I would love nothing better than to leave this job, but I don't have another job. So I'm going to smile and say, how are you today, Mrs. Rose? How are you to do this? You know, well, oh, this is great. Thank you for the work, right? Can't stand it. But I'm below the line. So what does this point to? What's a useful direction? Well, learn more skills, gain more experience, and learn from people that know how to, that know how to navigate the world. Save up and invest more money. Learn practical stuff, how to fix a washing machine. Don't have a child unless you're able and willing to take care of that child. Plan for a future that does not require your family approval or your cult's approval. Learn and become trauma literate. Heal your own traumas so you're not constantly running from fear. Learn to meet your needs, to survive, to feel secure, to experience love and belonging, to build self-esteem, to develop your gifts, to bring those gifts abundantly into the world and become part of something bigger than yourself. If you can do that with confidence, if you have backup plans in an emergency, if you develop options, if this happens, I'll do this. If that happens, I'll do this. If that falls through, I'll do this. And if it, worst case scenario, here's my safe place. Here's my little bubble to ride out the tornado or whatever it is, right? That's my competency. If you will do that, you give yourself and the world a tremendous gift, your authentic self. You don't have to say things you don't mean. You don't have to do jobs you hate. You don't have to have sex you don't want to have. You don't want to not have sex that you want to have. You don't have to hide your sexual preference. You don't have to lie. You don't have to patronize. You can be your whole and integrated self with integrity. And there's never been and will never be another you. You serve evolution and life when you become competent enough and listen deeply enough to who you are, that you act authentically, truthfully, from that place, your rhythm, your grace, your dreams, your beauty, truth, and goodness in your unique flavor. There's nothing that brings greater joy, and there's no greater contribution to life than to be a unique pattern of sustainable energy that is life's bet. Right? Life loves diversity, loves creativity, loves uniqueness, because life has a bet that no matter what happens, some part of life will continue. And if you're completely and utterly unique, maybe it'll be you. Maybe you'll be the one taking life to the next level. Life is a winner. It bets on everything. And some part of life always wins. Thank you.